You're asleep, completely unconscious, completely defenseless, no idea what's happening around you. Now go back 2 million years. Same helplessness, except this time, something in the dark already knows exactly where you are, and it's not the first time this has happened. Here's why this isn't just trivia. If even one of your ancestors had lost that exact moment, asleep, exposed, hunted, on any single night across 2 million years, you simply wouldn't exist. Every one of them made it through. Every single night. Until 2025, we didn't know how close some of them actually came to not making it, and we didn't know exactly who was doing the hunting. So today, did ancient humans actually get hunted while they slept? We're going to go through what the fossils prove, what modern hunter-gatherers can still tell us, and where humans eventually flipped the script entirely, from hunted to hunter. Picture life almost 2 million years ago. No walls, no doors, no weapons stronger than a sharpened rock. Just open grassland, scattered trees, and a lot of very large, very hungry animals sharing the same land as our ancestors. For decades, the story we told ourselves about this period was comforting. Early humans were supposed to already be climbing the food chain, becoming hunters, not staying prey. That was the textbook version. It just wasn't true yet. Homo habilis, one of the very first members of our own genus, was long credited as the species that flipped the script, the first real tool user, the first real hunter. 2 fossil jawbones from Tanzania were about to prove that timeline wrong. In 2025, a research team led by anthropologist Manuel Dominguez Rodrigo trained an AI model on hundreds of confirmed tooth marks from modern predators, hyenas, lions, crocodiles, leopards, until it could correctly identify the source of a bite with over 90% accuracy in blind testing. Then they pointed the model at 2 ancient jawbones with mysterious puncture marks nobody had been able to explain for decades. Both times, it landed on the same answer: leopard. Not scavenged after death, actively hunted and eaten. One of the 2 individuals was a juvenile. This one discovery pushed back, by hundreds of thousands of years, the point where researchers think humans stopped being regular prey. And this fossil wasn't a one-off. It was part of a pattern that shows up again and again. Leopards have a very specific habit. They don't scavenge. They hunt, then haul the kill up into a tree to keep it away from lions and hyenas on the ground. A roughly 1.5 million-year-old skull from a South African site called Swartkrans has 2 puncture holes lining up almost exactly with a leopard's canine teeth. And it's not only big cats. A young Australopithecus known as the Town Child, killed somewhere between 2 and 3 million years ago, has matching puncture marks at the base of both eye sockets, consistent with a large bird of prey, likely an eagle big enough to lift a small child clean off the ground. Before you dismiss that as impossible, modern crowned eagles in Africa today are documented doing exactly this to monkeys roughly that size. Here's the part that reframes everything. If the ground was this dangerous, most researchers think our ancestors simply didn't sleep there. They slept in trees, the same defensive strategy many primates still use today. So, what changed? The answer, most researchers argue, is fire. Fire is one of the only things that produces a near-universal, innate fear response across land animals. Not learned, built in. Once early humans controlled it, sleeping on the ground, in a group, near a flame, stopped being a near-guaranteed risk. And here's the part that surprises people. Some researchers now argue fire wasn't first tamed for cooking at all. A 2025 study proposes that meat preservation and predator protection were the more likely original drivers of fire use by Homo erectus. Cooking came later, almost as a bonus. Moving into caves and near fire solved one problem and created another. Caves weren't empty shelters waiting for humans to claim them. They were already occupied. Cave bears used them for hibernation. Cave lions used them too, and not just for shelter. Fully articulated cave lion skeletons have been found deep inside cave bear dens, meaning lions were going in specifically to prey on hibernating bears, and some lions clearly died attempting it. A cave, in other words, wasn't a safe box. It was contested ground, and humans moving in were adding themselves to an already dangerous rotation of tenants. But somewhere in that long, dangerous relationship, something changes. In Germany, researchers examined a 48,000-year-old cave lion skeleton and found a puncture wound in one of its ribs, positioned in a way that matches a wooden thrusting spear, driven in by a Neanderthal. This is currently the earliest direct evidence we have of a large predator being killed by early humans, rather than the other way around. Researchers think the hunter likely crept up on the lion while it was resting and delivered a single, precise, fatal strike. Separately, Roughly 190,000-year-old lion bones from another German site show signs Neanderthals were using lion pelts, meaning the relationship wasn't only about survival anymore, it had started becoming cultural. The predator that used to define how carefully you slept was starting to become something you wore. So, if humans were starting to fight back by 48,000 years ago, what does that tell us about how they were sleeping in the meantime? This is where modern research gets genuinely useful, because a handful of hunter-gatherer societies today still live in conditions close enough to the ancestral environment to study directly. Researchers observing the Hadza in Tanzania recorded sleep patterns across 20 nights and found something remarkable. Across that entire period, there was a combined total of only about 18 minutes where every single adult in camp was asleep at the same time. In other words, more than 99% of the time, even deep in the night, someone in the group was awake. Not because of insomnia, because the group's sleep schedules are naturally staggered, different ages, different individual rhythms, which means the camp as a whole is almost never fully unguarded. Researchers describe this as a possible group-level anti-predator strategy, similar to birds on the edge of a flock keeping watch while the rest of the group rests. It's not only a group-level pattern, it may be built into individual human physiology too. This is sometimes called the Sentinel hypothesis, the idea that brief nighttime awakenings are an evolved strategy for checking the environment for threats. A comparative study measuring actual nighttime awakenings found that people in non-industrial groups, like the Hadza, experience more frequent, lighter interruptions to sleep than people in industrialized populations with locked doors, solid walls, and no predators to listen for. Take that idea one step further, and you get to something almost everyone has experienced personally. That sudden jolt of falling right as you're drifting off, called a hypnic jerk. Some researchers propose it may be left over from a much older problem, a built-in reflex to catch yourself before falling out of a tree. Let's be honest about where the evidence actually stops, because this topic has a real mix of hard proof and reasonable inference. We have direct fossil proof that early humans were hunted and eaten by leopards and killed by birds of prey. We have direct proof that tens of thousands of years later, humans were killing large predators with spears. What we don't have is a single fossil that proves, beyond doubt, that a specific hominin was caught mid-sleep rather than during the day. That's not a small gap. The sleep-specific danger is the most likely explanation given everything else. Tree sleeping before fire, leopards' well-documented nocturnal hunting habits, fire's demonstrated deterrent effect, and modern hunter-gatherers' staggered sleep patterns. But it's an inference built from strong circumstantial evidence, not a directly observed fact. It's also worth flagging that some of the specific predator identifications in this field are genuinely debated among researchers. The idea that an extinct cat called Defenseless specifically hunted hominins, for example, has been proposed by some scientists and directly disputed by others. This is a field where the picture keeps sharpening, not one that's fully settled, which makes the whole arc land differently. 2 million years ago, something as simple as staying alive until morning wasn't guaranteed. It was a live problem serious enough that solving it took some of the first real technology our species ever built: fire, group living, and eventually caves. By around 48,000 years ago, the relationship had flipped far enough that a Neanderthal could walk up to a resting cave lion and end the threat with a single spear thrust. And astonishingly, the underlying instincts from that whole arc haven't fully disappeared. Researchers have found that today's large predators, mountain lions, tigers, jaguars, still show inherited caution around humans, likely shaped by thousands of generations of humans hunting the boldest individuals out of the population. Some of that avoidance is now so deeply wired that predators change their movement patterns around us without ever having a single direct encounter. We spent 2 million years learning how to survive the night. Somewhere along the way, without fully realizing it, we became the thing everything else learned to fear in the dark. So the next time your alarm goes off too early, or you're annoyed about losing an hour of sleep, remember, 2 million years ago, your ancestors would have called that a very, very good morning. And somewhere around a fire, tens of thousands of years later, one of them finally stopped waiting to see what would come out of the dark and started walking toward it instead.